What are some dark truths that you've had to accept in life? Story 1. Your closest friend today may not be your friend at all in the future. Maybe you get into a fight, or maybe you just drift apart and try to stay in contact, but neither of you can find the time to get together and hang out. Maybe it's the person at work that you vent to and that person becomes your closest confidant, but life moves on and you can't always take your friends with you. Story 2. It's up to me to make my life better. Sure, I have some support, but ultimately it's all up to me whether I put in the effort to finish my degree, whether I can put myself out there to build a social life and make friends, whether I can keep myself disciplined enough to regularly exercise. And I don't feel like I have it in me to keep all that up. I'm only barely achieving one of those three things as is. My maximum effort right now is below a lot of people's baselines. Story 3. That inner beauty doesn't really matter, that you can be as smart, kind, or talented as you like. But if you're unattractive, you will still always be watching attractive people get handed life on a silver platter. Attractive people will always have better job prospects, better love lives, more friends, and more money, while smart, kind, talented, unattractive people get left in the dust because our society doesn't give two f**ks about inner beauty. If you're ugly, then society has decided that you're at a disadvantage for the rest of your life, even if your personality is better than your attractive competitors, because society has decided that outer beauty is worth more than anything else. Story 4. As human beings, we're very pretentious. We write books, movies, art, and other things to be grandiose, but rarely follow through on our claims, and when we fail, we use the cop-outs of, well, I'm only human, or worse, using God or religion. Not all life is equal and never will be, and yet we say all men are created equal. Also, your value to the larger society is equal to economic input and value. You love your family and are all around good people, but work at McDonald's in your 30s? Ha, loser. Story 5. I'm not that smart, not that talented, and not that interesting. I will only ever make enough money to survive. Because of my issues with intimacy and commitment, I won't ever be able to exist in a loving long-term relationship without resentment and destroying a person who only wants to love me. With all that being said, it's okay. I'm actually pretty happy with my life after coming to these conclusions. Most people don't make a difference in the world. I enjoy my little life with my pet, my travels, and my writing. Story 6. Nobody cares about you as much as you care about yourself, and people are far more interested in what you can do for them than what they can do for you. Finally, all we are is a series of easily exploitable, absurdly predictable, irrationally, and emotionally driven biological organisms that are not unique or special or important or smart. None of our decisions are really ours, although we are under the illusion they are. We wake up every morning telling ourselves lies that we are important, unique, and special in the grand scheme of things simply because it is what is necessary for us to continue moving forward and reproduce. Too many years in marketing and consumer psychology. Story 7. We are all criminals in mind. Everyone is capable of killing, stealing, lying, harming, hunting each other. Everyone even once in their life has thoughts about killing someone or doing something really bad. Everyone has this dark side of the mind. Every being is dual in nature, both light and darkness. Only that these two are ever changing in definition. Something that is considered dark in one domain can be considered as righteous in another, and vice versa. There's no definite way to tell something good from something evil. We only use it as a concept, without realizing it cannot be applied to the universe. We have laws in place that deter most of us from doing various acts, but even these laws are a result of this fighting instinct, of this primal want to see the next sunrise. Everything is hanging in a perfect balance, and yet so ever delicate. All it can take is just a tiny little push, and the whole of humanity goes to hell. Story 8. That people you love will use you and lie to you, that it will break your heart, that you'll feel empty inside because you gave them so much of yourself, but they left and took parts of you with them, and now you feel numb and dead inside, that you can't stop trying to blame yourself, and that you can't blame him because depression is hard, especially when he didn't say anything about it during the entire relationship, when you just want something to blame so you can get over what was, living with trust issues, because if he was just using me to feel happy, what else was a lie? Story 9. Nothing we see on the internet is real. We are all puppets on a string in this new age of information. All of the research we do is Google, and the most effort people put in checking Wikipedia. We're too lazy to take the hard road of learning from books and museums and journals when the online way is so much more convenient. Every bit of news and historical data can and will be edited to revise our understanding of culture and history by corporations. The internet is full of shit, and we're more than happy to eat it up. Academics have lied to us about Australian history, saying stuff that directly contradicts the Journal of Captain Cook and his explorers, and scam artists have taken full advantage of the Google search algorithms by making sure the top 10 results only say good things about them. Story 10. Sometimes life will come and slap you right in the face just when you think everything is going okay and you wonder what you did to deserve it. But you realize you don't deserve it. No one deserves most of the stuff that happens to them. It's just the random, unrelenting, unforgiving way of life. The same random, miraculous life that brought you into the world is the same one that allows your dad to pass away in the same year your mom gets diagnosed with cancer. The dark truth of life is that it doesn't give a fuck. It has no reasoning to it, no purpose. It just is. The only thing you can do is take that mother trucker for a ride, because it is definitely going to take you for one. Story 11. Watch yourself on video. Look closely at your face and listen to your voice. You'll realize that the person you are on the inside is not often how people see you from the outside, no matter how much effort you've made to be sincere. It's a flaw in our creation. We're screwed. It's why you can be depressed for years and wonder why nobody around you has noticed anything is wrong. It's why that person you have a crush on doesn't find you as charming as you think you are. It's why someone betrayed you. You never really made a connection with them to begin with. It's why people don't get you. Your face and voice do not represent you well. People rarely ever get to know the real you. It sucks to admit this, but outside of your body perception is reality. It's why hundreds of people audition for the same role. On the inside, every single one of them is the part, but on the outside, some seem more the part than others. That's how life works. The good news is you can help the situation by trying to improve yourself every day. Story 12. Most times it looks like the bad and corrupt always win. What's the incentive to be good when you get run all over by people who mistake kindness with weakness? This is something we're wrestling with in our house on a daily basis. My kids are really good and kind people, the kind of people I hope to grow up and be someday. Legit. They are so kind, so wonderful, so pure, and they get shit on all day, every day. They come home crushed, and it crushes my heart. I try to tell them that the hurt people are the mean ones. How do I explain to them that they shouldn't give up? That they're what's good in this world because they represent the hope and kindness we're all looking for? Story 13. I'm not sure if it's because I've gotten older or if it's a sign of the times, but the sense of community that I had as a kid is gone. It doesn't matter how many friends you have on Facebook. People are too immersed in their own worlds to build any sense of togetherness that is meaningful and real. Even when I've gone through some of the biggest, craziest, life or death, most important things in my life, people aren't always going to show up for you. Most of the time you're on your own. Even if a huge, life-shattering event happens, people move on quickly. Loneliness is inevitable. Sometimes being connected makes you feel incredibly disconnected from everything. Story 14. We live in a crapsack dystopian world. Good things don't happen to good people. Good things happen to people with money and/or connections. Karma doesn't punish the bad people. It punishes the poor and unfortunate. Life is not only unfair, but it's actually malicious, cruel, and vindictive. No good deed goes unpunished. In the real world, the bad guy usually wins. Things will never go your way. When it seems like they are, it's just life playing a cruel joke on you, prepared to have it yanked away from you at the last second. The older you get, the harder it is to lose family members and friends, and the more frequently people you care about will die. No matter what happens to you, you're nothing more than a statistic in the grand scheme of things. Everybody is selfish and can never really be trusted. Story 15. Only I can control how happy I am. Nothing in life can make me happy. I have to seek it out and put in effort in order to experience the joy it brings. I had known this for years, but it wasn't until my ex left about 4 weeks ago that it finally hit me how little I was doing for myself in order to be happy. Now I'm sketching for the first time since early high school. I've bought a Polaroid camera, I'm making travel arrangements, and I'm planning on moving somewhere to start fresh. But it is all too easy to sink back into a depression and question everything, every little motive, every little idea. If I do that, I'll become complacent in my sullen attitude and marinate in yearning. It's so much easier to wish yourself happiness than to actually realize that desire. Story 16. People in power don't give a single crap about you. Even if you've been doing something for 4 years and know the ropes, they will come in and immediately start their own thing, regardless of the consequences and at risk of alienating 100 people. And when you rise up and say this isn't right, you get threatened of being kicked out of the program. Your voice won't matter next year anyway once you graduate. You will always be one voice in a sea of hundreds. It will never matter to those in power. Story 17. You will not be remembered. Even if you have fame and power and riches, you'll still be forgotten. Go, try to be a famous actor. You might make it. You might be in some of the best movies of the year. You might win an Oscar, but you won't be remembered. Case in point, how many pre-1950 Best Actor winners can you name? Fame is pretty hard to get. It's not impossible, but it is there. But you won't be remembered. Go ahead, run for office. Be the head of state for your country. Unless you fundamentally change the lives of everyone on earth, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, then you won't be remembered. At best, you'll be a footnote in history, a name that future kids will need to pair with a date in order to pass their test. How much do you know about the guy who your street is named after? That guy who has his name on the memorial in the park? The guy to whom the bridge is dedicated? Fame and power are hard as hell to get. But people still chase them, and they are attainable, but they are still fleeting. It only takes a few generations for the famous and powerful to be forgotten, just like everyone else. Story 18. For the 90% of us who weren't fortunate enough to be born into crazy, wealthy, powerful families, or be blessed with a genius mind, our entire adult lives will be spent grinding away at salaried jobs. There's no such thing as a reasonable work hour now, especially in big cities. No overtime, and most importantly, you'll always be an expendable tool to your bosses who probably make 10 times more money than you. A lot of us will one day find ourselves at the age of 50 or 60, retired, and realize that we never accomplished any of our dreams or goals. It reminds me of something the Dalai Lama said in an interview. The interviewer asked him, "What perplexes you the most?" And the Dalai Lama's answer was something along the lines of man. Because of his anxiety of the unknown future, he spends all his time working. He will often sacrifice his health because he has to work so hard, and then he will sacrifice all the money he earned to regain that health so he can continue to work. He lives with disregard towards his health as if he is never going to die, and in the end, dies never having truly lived. Story 19. There is a baseline amount of bullshit in any society, and we can't do anything about it. I'm going to say maybe 2%. That is a guess. But 2% of your life bad things will happen. It happens to everyone, rich, poor, black, white, whatever, and different people have a different 2%. Communications and expectations are never going to line up. I may say one thing, but you hear another, even though we are both talking about the same thing. And this is why I think most culture war discussions are bullshit. SJWs, alt-right, progressive, religious, everyone is caught up in exploiting that 2% of miscommunication, but in the end we are all really, really close together on the bell curve of society. We just highlight that 2% cause conflict, and people of all ideologies thrive on that conflict, and this will never be resolved. Story 20. Human interaction is utility motivated. You are relevant to someone as long as you provide utility. Your best friend isn't texting you back because there's no utility in it for him, and when you do get a text back, it is because a situation has changed and he now sees utility in your conversation. This is not a conscious decision. You cannot be woke from this. Each and every one of us instinctually seeks self-advancement. For me personally, my old man is a well of harsh lessons. He has done so much for his loved ones, but also so much for his loved ones. The one I struggle with constantly is that he is an evil man who will go to the grave thinking he was one of the good ones, and not showing up to his deathbed would hurt him immensely, even if it's what he deserves. And I cannot for the life of me decide what the right way to handle him is. I don't think there is one. From him, I've learned that there's no such thing as good people. Someone can volunteer all their free time at a shelter and go home and their daughter, and someone else can be an ornery cunt to everyone they come across and still sacrifice every dollar they make to make their wife happy in her ailing years. People aren't good or evil, just complicated. Story 21. The technology for practical high-quality VR is not accessible to the common consumer and still remains an enthusiast-grade thing. 2. We'll never know the truth about the Bootes void in our lifetime. Could be the beginning of the end of our universe. Could be an alien species that encases every star within their reach inside of a fully enclosed Dyson sphere. Could be a space-time glitch, but a big, dark, empty space with a radius of 165 million light-years that has only a couple of visible galaxies here and there within that space is deeply disturbing. 3. There are forces in this world that have the power and authority to prosecute their own agenda, even if it's inimical to my interests and the well-being of the common person, and there's not a damn thing that any of us can do about it. 4. Climate change is an artifact of capitalism. Capitalism is a deeply flawed system, but making any drastic changes now to stave off climate change will result in the loss of hundreds of millions of jobs. Story 22. Every comfort we enjoy requires the suffering of other people or animals. There's, in my view, convincing evidence that consciousness is made up and that no, we do not have free will. Our brains are merely wired to trick us into thinking we have control. Please don't misconstrue this as an argument for no one being responsible for their actions. 3. We lie to ourselves 24/7 in order to function. We constantly believe things without proof, yet trick ourselves into thinking we have proof. We forget that beliefs, no matter how noble the belief, can never be proven as true the way gravity can be proven as true. We constantly believe correlations equal causations when scientifically we know that to be a fallacy. We constantly contradict ourselves and think we are consistent and readily point out someone else's contradictions. So we are all also hypocrites. We can rationalize any behavior or belief as long as it helps us feel in control, safe, etc. And if by some miracle we accepted this to be a human truth, we'd still act this way every day unless we make a conscious effort not to, but we'd probably trick ourselves into thinking we were making a conscious effort anyway. Story 23. As a doc who has worked with the underserved, homeless, and in public health, as a society we are okay with inequality and placing moral judgments on poverty and will never devote the money or manpower to truly addressing these issues. On the converse, by working with these populations you will meet some of the most inspiring and amazing people who accept these truths and work their hardest to still address them. Story 24. That we're all gonna die, some die young, some die old. Some have fulfilled life and dreams while others have nothing but pain and despair. That the older you get, health problems arise. It's like an old car. Later on, you will only exist in people's memory and will soon be forgotten unless you've contributed something huge. If you have to compare yourself, you're just this very tiny atom in the universe. Story 25. That money rules the world. There are minimal to no hard consequences for your actions if you have money and can pay your way out of your problem. Money can ultimately corrupt good people, and the greed for money will supersede even the most dire consequences. Look at our oceans, global warming, famine, lack of access to medical care. We have the resources and the knowledge to solve these problems, but won't, either because it costs too much outright or making the necessary changes will cost too much. We might suffocate, starve ourselves to death, suffer from preventable and treatable diseases, all because we are unwilling to give up a man-made, ultimately inconsequential form of currency. We all know it, but few are willing to give it up. I despise money. Story 26. That identity is meaningless. In a culture that places so much emphasis on an individual sense of self, I think most people forget how fluid and illusory such a thing actually is. The result being that people cling to the outward appearance of confidence or understanding or even culture without truly understanding anything about themselves as human beings. We relate to ourselves in stereotype because the idea that identity means nothing frightens the shit out of us. Story 27. That in order to move forward, you have to ignore certain unpleasant things: homelessness, wars in foreign countries, poverty, eat meat. And I try not to think of where my food comes from because I know it's terrible. I try my best to eat less meat when I can, but I do enjoy it. I just hate knowing what the corporations who make it do to the animals. There are always things you can do to help, but in the end, there are times you need to just push the thoughts away and move forward with your life. Story 28. Regardless of your sound or good-naturedness, your theory is on organizing large groups of humanity, politically, economically, morally. There will be people that will find a way to twist it to their advantage. Policing efforts of such things will also be corrupted. It doesn't take many people to compromise a system. We can only hope to mitigate the amount of damage the people in charge can take advantage of the system. Even that can screw up. When I'm extra negative, I hate all of humanity and hope for the promise for anima. Learn to swim. On a good day, I know most people are both good and bad. My life is fine even with all the crap people do, and this is how humanity is. We are just more exposed to it. All I can do is stay in my lane, effect what I can, and don't stress what you can't change. Those days don't happen as often as they should. I would have Thanos in this world if I had the chance. Glad I don't have that glove. I am an angry and bitter old man. I have a feeling old, still disillusioned. Gen Xers are going to be the grumpiest of old people. Have a nice day. Story 29. If you wanted to change the world in some way, you probably won't. You'll live and die doing something meaningless for no reason other than to live longer. We enjoy ourselves while living but have no idea why living is even worth it other than the fact that we don't know what happens when we die. With all this being said, I don't mind this. Makes me want to enjoy life more, be more successful, and be a better person. Why? Because I don't know what's in my future. I want my kids to have an easier time being successful so they can enjoy life more. And because being a better person makes others better too, so everyone's happier. I can't save the world, but at least I can live in it the best I can. Story 30. That there will always be people who take what isn't theirs, and you can't always prevent or stop it. You'll just have to deal with the unfairness and loss. This sounds silly to be the reason for my dark truth, but when I was in early high school, my family's RV was stolen. The police found it, but the thieves had taken all our stuff from inside. I cried really hard that the Lego collection I'd been building my entire life was lost forever. I'm in my 20s and honestly think I would still be playing with them if I had them. Edit. This is getting some attention, so I want to add that the RV also had wrapping paper in it and only empty rolls were left behind. All my other toys were stolen too, like board games and videos. The thieves were meth addicts who threw a party in it, but one supposedly had a child, so I guess there's some kid out there who got all my favorite things for her birthday. I have a nice life, and he could probably use the happiness more than me, but that doesn't make me any less sad, to be honest.